Welcome to episode 148 of Behind the Shield podcast. As always, my name's James Gearing, and this week I have an incredibly powerful story for you. I was invited into the home of Agent Drew Stokes as he recounted his story of surviving a murder attempt in the parking lot of a Publix supermarket here in America. And this interview was done less than a year after he almost died. We are seeing just a horrendous amount of attacks on our law enforcement members. And it seems like there's a daily event that we have a line of duty death involved with the murder of an officer. So Drew, you're going to hear, I mean, he was just a hair's width from death, came back, and his story of recovery, how he used CrossFit as his rehab tool, just mentally, how he survived this attack and went back to work in such a short amount of time is going to blow you away. There's no other, expression for it. It's incredible. So I urge you to listen, and I urge you to share the hell out of this, because his story needs to be heard worldwide, not only by the people in the first responder community, but by the civilians who are kind of led down a certain path by certain media outlets. But these men and women swear the oath and literally lay their lives on the line every single day. And Drew lived to tell the tale, but many of our brothers and sisters didn't. So with that being said, as I always say, please go to your podcast apps, rate the show, share the show. But as with this episode, share the hell out of these interviews, these stories, these incredible human beings that I'm blessed to have on this podcast. So without further ado, I introduce to you Agent Drew Stokes. Enjoy. So I'm here sitting in Drew Stokes' house. So thank you first for inviting me to your beautiful home.
Welcome. Thanks for coming up.
Thank you. Yeah, I was driving through and it was beautiful manicured lawns and golf courses. And that's not always where my interviews are. So thank you.
I'm very fortunate to have a great wife.
Yes. Yeah, no, a beautiful home too. So I want to start at the very, very beginning. We're going to talk about your whole story and, the tragedy and then the miraculous recovery and where CrossFit fit in. But I'd love to start at the very, very beginning. So we're here now in Jacksonville. Were you born in this area?
I was not. I was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay. And then if you wouldn't mind, just give me a little snapshot of what your family unit was like, what your parents did and how many siblings.
So I have one sister, two stepbrothers. My father worked for Bell South or Southern Bell. He was a lineman. My mother had several different jobs in the banking industry, and she's retired now.
Okay. And how long was your dad a lineman for?
My dad worked for Bell South for just over 30 years. He started out fueling trucks and then became a lineman, and then worked in fiber optics, and now he contracts back with them in an engineering capacity for another company.
Right. And did you have any military or first responders in your family back then?
No, we had no. My grandfather was in the Navy for 2 years. He was in the Navy Reserves, and that's it.
Brilliant. All right. So back then, obviously now you do a very active job, and we're going to talk about being an athlete in the CrossFit space too. But were you an active sportsman or an athlete back then?
So I tried to play football, and in 8th grade, I didn't make the team. So I gave up on football right then. As a kid, I did play basketball like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And then once I did make the football team in 8th grade, I decided that I had a new focus, and those were girls, and through high school, and that was my primary goal, was to chase them around.
Right. Well, that's exercise. That's cardio. A lot of abs. All right. So what about your career path then? So you come out of high school. Were you immediately on the path to law enforcement?
So I got my love for law enforcement, or where I wanted to go in law enforcement, when I was in somewhere in high school. I grew up in a little county called Davidson County, and went to North Davidson Senior High School, which is just outside of Lexington, North Carolina. And we had a field trip, and I remember seeing a North Carolina State Trooper. We went to a local community college, and I saw a North Carolina State Trooper in an unmarked Mustang pull up. And he was impeccably dressed. And I said, this is what I want to do. I've always been kind of a car guy. And I was like, man, if I could be in this well dressed and be able to drive a fast car for a living. I said this would be fantastic. So going through high school, I really didn't have a lot of direction. I wasn't a very good student. I was kind of a clown, and I remember I was in Mr. Everhart's advanced science class in my senior year. And I talked with a girl named Kelly Morgan was sitting beside me, and I was talking to her, and her boyfriend at the time his name was John Griggs, who's now a firefighter, by the way. And he had joined the Coast Guard. And I got to talking to her about him joining the Coast Guard. And I said, I never even thought about the Coast Guard because I knew I wasn't going to college. I wasn't built for that. Academically, I wasn't ready, and as a man, I just wasn't ready to go to college. So I decided right then and there, I went and talked to a Coast Guard recruiter. And May 31st, 1992, I graduated high school, and then I took off and went to Coast Guard. And June 29th, 30 days later, is when I started when I went to boot camp.
Right. That's interesting. My father-in-law is a Coastie, very, very proud Coastie.
Yes.
So,
so I did 6 years. I got stationed at Coast Guard Academy, and then I went to Radarman School. So I was a professional radar operator. Went to a ship in Long Beach, California, a high endurance cutter, which I was on for 3 years. And then after that 3 years, I got stationed in 1998. 1996. I got stationed with the Legacy U.S. Customs Service, watching radar on the southwest border or southern border. We went all the way from California all the way down to South Florida, and then also into northern South America, looking for airplanes coming across the border, smuggling contraband. So I started doing that in 1996, and then I actually got picked up with the Legacy Customs Service in 1998. So I did the exact same job. I literally got out of the Coast Guard on a Friday and started with Customs the following Monday. I did the same job. I never went into training. I just kept doing the same thing.
Oh, was that a good relationship between the two, or were you just headhunted and pulled
No,
out
it was
one?
a great relationship.
Okay.
We worked great. With the Legacy Customs Service and the Coast Guard had a very good partnership.
Right. Okay.
So and I was able to. It was a smooth, easy transition for me and for the Customs Service.
Right. So were you within that during 9/11 then, the 2001?
Yes. So I was not at the ground radar facility then. I transferred here to Jacksonville, and I was flying in. We have P-3 aircraft, which is a large 4-engine turboprop. They were originally made for subhunting during the Cold War, and Customs now has 14 of them. At that time, we had 16, and we had like an AWACS style radar on them. And so we would, during 9/11, we actually responded afterwards and patrolled the airspace around the United States. So yes, is your answer. I was flying for Customs then as a radar operator.
Okay, and then were you doing then what you're still doing now, the same kind of role?
That's correct. The only difference is at that time I wasn't considered a law enforcement officer, so I was able to transition and become an agent in November of 2007.
Right. So if you wouldn't mind for everyone, and I've told you this before we even started, you work for Air Marine Operations. Right. I have no idea what you guys do. So talking to an 8-year-old, aka my brain, if you wouldn't mind kind of describing what you guys do and what your kind of scope of practice is. Sure.
So Air Marine Operations is part of Customs and Border Protection. There are three parts of Customs Border Protection, which is the Border Patrol, Office of Field Operations, and then Air and Marine Operations. So Air and Marine Operations, we have the largest law enforcement aircraft inventory in the world. We have over 200 aircraft, over 300 vessels that we use to protect all the borders, the northern border, the southern border, on down into Puerto Rico. And then the aircraft that I fly in are long-range aircraft. We'll actually deploy and we'll fly in the Eastern Pacific or in the Caribbean looking for drug smuggling aircraft or contraband smuggling aircraft, vessels, fishing vessels, semi-submersible vessels, go-fast type vessels, anything that they can use to push contraband is what we're looking for.
All right, so you're flying the planes. We're getting this vision of what you do in the skies. But I know on September 26th, 2017, you were actually on land at a Publix and had a life-changing event. So if we kind of go back a little bit, what got you? Where were you that day? Why were you there? And then, if you wouldn't mind, kind of just telling us what happened.
Okay, so to get to September 26th, I need to start about a month before. To set it up and really understand for your audience. During that time is when Hurricane Harvey was happening. So we'll go 3 weeks, a month before. Hurricane Harvey's happening, and my agency, Air Marine Operations, has a massive response to the Houston flooding. I call a friend of mine, so they're based out of San Antonio because obviously all the airports in Houston are shut down. So they're flying Blackhawks, Hueys, all kinds of aircraft into Houston from San Antonio, and then we're doing P3 support as well. So I wasn't on the flight schedule immediately. So one of my friends is out there running the show. I just happened to talk to him, and he's like, "Man, I'm buried out here." I said, "Do you need some help?" He goes, "I do, but I can't ask for you." So I was like, so I went and talked to my boss. I'm like, "Hey, they need some help out there." And I said, "Can I go out there and help?" And he said, "Absolutely." So they put the next airplane we sent out to San Antonio. I jumped on it and went out there and basically helped them. So to get the guy who's running the operation out there, I basically was able to relieve him at night, get paperwork squared away, watch the aircraft, get missions ready. And then the next morning it was basically just to give him time to sleep for 7 or 8 hours. I could sit there. I wasn't doing anything spectacular. I was just basically, just doing the very minimum amount I could to help them out. So we did that for about a week and a half or so, where basically we're just working, port and starboard type shifts, 12 hours on, 12 hours off. And the water started receding in Houston. They moved the helicopters to Conroe, and then Hurricane Irma is starting to fire up. So, and Irma, as you know, was coming towards Florida. It was all the forecasts were it's just going to come straight up the middle of Florida, or either hit Jacksonville, or maybe just up the West Coast. I really didn't know. So, but what we did know is we needed to leave. So we left. We went back to Jacksonville, and then we evacuated our aircraft from Jacksonville. We took them to a spot where they would be safe, near the center of the country. So once we all got back to Jacksonville, Irma hits here, and then we have some employees, some other agents that have some localized flooding in their houses. We have some retirees, things like that, to help them dig out. So we take a couple days and help guys dig out from their families. We get everybody back up on their feet, and then we go get our aircraft and bring them back to Jacksonville. So as soon as we get the airplanes back, that's when Maria fires up. So Maria fires up, and we know it's headed towards, St. Thomas, St. Croix, Puerto Rico. We know it's going to be bad. And the administration did a fantastic job of us getting out in front of it. So what we did was they told us, they said, "Hey, take one of the aircraft and fly out to El Paso, and we need you to pick up some SRT folks." And so we flew to El Paso, and I don't remember the exact date, but it was towards the end of September. We flew out to El Paso. We stayed overnight there, and then we loaded an SRT guys and their pack out in the airplane, and we left from then. While we were there, they said, "Hey, we need you to go to Homestead and pick up more people." So we flew about 4 hours down to Homestead, picked up another group of SRT folks and their stuff, and then we're basically flying through the outer bands of the hurricane to get down to Puerto Rico. So we land in San Juan, which is really, really, really tore up at that point. So we were able to land there, and then we kicked some of the SRT folks off. Then we took off and went to Aguadilla, which is where we have a base there. And so we landed in Aguadilla, which was Aguadilla was beat up really bad, but we were able to get folks in. And so the agency asked us to, if there was somebody, employees basically or contractors, if their families, if they needed to get out of Puerto Rico, so we're going back to Jacksonville anyway, just put them on the airplane and go. So they told us to do that, and there was another airplane that was before us that took a big load of people. The plane I was on, we brought back 4 people. So now we're about maybe 16 hours into our day, 14, 15, 16 hours, who knows at that point. So we're getting the airplane out of there. We got to go, fly through the edge of this hurricane again and then get back to Jacksonville. Well, on the way back, we get these people, and one of the ones was a little girl. She was maybe 5, 6 years old, maybe. And she was scared. These airplanes are big. They're loud. They're 4-engine turboprop airplanes. They don't have any windows inside of them. It's dark, and you could tell this little girl was terrified. She was with her grandmother, I believe, and then we had 2 other folks as well. And I just remember seeing her. She was wearing a shark suit, like a shark outfit, and I see her, she just had this look on her face. So it's like, "What, you guys have anything to eat?" And then they're like, "We don't have anything." So I'm like, what? And then I realized that these people had just basically been through a nuclear bomb. If you could think about it, I mean, everything's gone. And so we decided we realized then that they didn't have any food. So we gave them our food that we had left, cooked them a meal, and then we have 4 beds in the back of the airplane. So we were able to put all 4 people in the beds in the back of the airplane, get them back to Jacksonville, and then get them to a hotel once we landed. So it was a super long day, but it was totally worth it.
Right. Just to interject for a second. So that's the hurricane that completely flattened Puerto Rico, took out all their infrastructure. Their houses basically were evaporated.
Correct. Yes. Right. And these were some people we were just able to get on the airplane and get out of there, get back to some civilization.
Right. Because when you talk about that, Katrina, I'll never forget. And I just want to touch on this point because it's one of the things that's killed me about, I guess, media in general. But you talked about you're on a plane. There were people that needed to leave, so you took them with you. I'll never forget in Hurricane Katrina seeing Geraldo Rivera screaming on TV that he was beneath this, flyover, this freeway flyover, and the same people were still there than when they went there 3 days ago. And I'm just looking at the TV there. Well, why the fuck didn't you take him in your helicopter the first time? So it's great to see that the simple mobilization of vehicles that you can take, move people away from that, and that's what we need to do. Instead of looking for a certain agency or whatever, every single person can roll up their sleeves and help. And what you did with your colleagues before you mobilized is what everyone in that community should be doing.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So I was scheduled to go back to Puerto Rico on September 27th. I was scheduled to fly that day. So on September 26th, knowing what we had just been through, it had a profound effect on me because I just seeing a child like that, it really bothered me. So I talked with a boss. I was like, hey, I'm going to go to Publix. We'll go grab some groceries, put it back in the refrigerator to work. That way, when I get to work in the morning, I can just grab it, put it on the airplane, and we can go. Because these are pretty long days. I mean, you look at pre-flight in an airplane, flying to Puerto Rico's, 4.5, 5 hours. Who knows how long you're going to be on the ground, and 4.5, 5 hours back. So these are very long days. So I decided to go to Publix and grab some stuff for the people coming back.
Right, and you were in your uniform.
I was in uniform, so we generally wear a one-piece flight suit. We have an option for a two-piece flight suit, which is what I had on that day. So I had on flight suit pants, I had on a T-shirt that said CBP Federal Agent on the back of it, and I was wearing a shoulder holster. And so I go into Publix, do my shopping. I'll never forget, I come out of lane number 2. I remember Publix is very good about their employees. Hey, do you need help out? They're a fantastic company. And I'll never forget, there was a little blonde-headed girl there. She was late teens probably, and she asked me if I needed help out. And usually I say yes. I just say, hey, let's walk and talk. And I just ask them how their day's going, where their future is, what their plans are. But that day I said no. And I don't know why I said no. I just did. So I come out of the door of Publix, and I start walking down the very center. So if you imagine how Publix is, they have on each side of the store, they have doors. And then, so if you can imagine, in between the two doors was a parking space or lane. So I started walking down that lane. And as I got to, if you can imagine where the handicap spots are, I'm walking with groceries in my hand. And all of a sudden I hear someone screaming at the top of their lungs, "I fucking hate cops." And then bang, 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 bang. Just like that. I mean, it was from the time he screamed, "I hate cops," till the shot sequence was over was maybe 2 seconds, maybe. So he shot me 5 times. Complete ambush. He was driving a black BMW from behind. He had his left hand out the window, and he just shot me. He got 5 direct hits on me from about 7 feet away.
So he shot from seated in the car?
From seated in a moving vehicle, yes.
Wow. So again, when we talk about situational awareness, you can kind of Monday morning quarterback.
Right.
It's kind of hard to predict that.
Exactly. And when I talk in person, I have guys, hey, I want them to Monday morning quarterback me. Tell me what I could have done differently. There's a million different things I could have done differently. And I know that. But it was just, was it complacency? Who knows? I mean, but it was an ambush. I never had a chance. So he had the gun pointed at me before he screamed, "I hated cops." It was already pointed at me. So whenever he screamed, I immediately dropped my bags I had in my hand, and I went to grab, because it's a cross draw for a shoulder holster. So the gun was underneath my left arm. So I went to grab the gun, and then as soon as I got my hands on the gun, the first shot went in underneath my right arm. So in that bullet, which we didn't know at the time, broke my ribs, and then went through my liver and stopped in my spine.
So you weren't wearing a vest that day?
I was not wearing a vest that day, no. I was just going to the store and coming back.
I was going to say, you didn't have reason to really be armored up.
Right. And so the second bullet, it went in through my my right buttock. And if you could imagine, if you've ever shot a target that as it turns, it makes that cut in the paper. Well, that's exactly what the gunshot wound in my right buttock looks like. That bullet went through my rectum and then stopped in my left hip, and that bullet is still there as well. Bullet number 3. Now we train to turn towards our threat, and I think the combination of the bullets and my training was turning me towards him. So the third shot went into the top of my right hip and just went straight in and stopped, and that bullet's still there. The fourth went in my left leg, just on the outside of my femur. It went out the back, and then the fifth bullet went through my arm right here. It went through my left forearm, just south of my elbow, and came out on the north side.
Right, and just from here, sitting here, obviously you're looking like Swiss cheese with all these bullet hole scars that you're showing me.
Right, and then you can see where they opened me up.
Oh yeah.
So I've got a midline scar from the bottom of my chest cavity to the top of my belt line. I've got a midline scar, and then I've got another east-west scar from where I was on a colostomy bag for 5 months. So this is where they had to open me up and repair my liver.
All right. So before we go to what happens next, had that guy been targeting you specifically, or had he just said in his day when he came across the cop he was going to kill him?
Correct. So he decided that day that he was the local sheriff's department, Clay County Sheriff, had put out a warrant for his arrest for a petty transportation of narcotics. They had contacted his mother. His mother contacted him. He had a hatred for cops. So he said that he was either going to go kill another drug dealer named Ladarius or the first cop that he saw. And 12 minutes after that, he made that call to his girlfriend is when he found me.
Right. Okay. Well, back to you. So you're lying there. You've just been shot.
So I just been shot. So I felt every what people ask me, what's it feel like to be shot? And the only thing that I can relate it to is if you can think of a 22-year-old Mike Tyson hitting you as hard as he can in the rib cage with no glove on. I don't know what that feels like, but I know what a gunshot feels like, and they're probably pretty similar. So he shot me with a Glock 19. It was ball ammo, thankfully. It was a stolen weapon as well. So I felt every bullet go through my body. I knew I was being shot. I didn't know how many times I'd been shot. I just knew that it was happening. And so I was trying to fight through it, but it just buckled my knees. There was nothing I could do. It buckled my knees. I made it maybe a foot and a half, and then I collapsed in the parking lot. So I collapsed just because I couldn't. I've been shot in my legs and my torso, and I just couldn't physically stand up. But I wasn't out of the fight, so I continued to draw my gun. And when I did, the back of my hand went across the asphalt, and I've got a big scar on the back of my hand. It actually ripped all the sensory nerves off the back of my hand, which have since found their way back. I don't know how that happens, but it's pretty miraculous the way the body works.
Yeah, I heard that can actually happen with nerves. People changing their mind in science now.
Yeah. So I get my gun out, and I'm like, and I look over and I see these two holes in my left arm, and I'm getting pretty mad. I was like, this guy just shot me, and I'm mad. I'm really, really mad, and I'm cussing, I'm screaming, but I know that there's a guy with a gun out there, and I'm laying in a parking lot, and there's an open field. So I start scanning for targets. I was like, I'm laying here, and I look, and there was a white F-150 in front of me, and I start looking underneath the car because I was thinking the guy was probably going to circle around and put another one in me, and so I start seeing feet coming at me underneath that truck. So I take my weapon, I rotate as far around as I can. I think I'm to the end of the truck, maybe not all the way, but I'm close. And I've got all the slack out of the trigger. I've made a determination I'm going to kill this person that comes around inside the truck. That's because I'm sure it's the shooter, the way the feet are coming at me. So I've got all the slack out of the trigger. I've got my gun pointed, waiting for him to come around. And whenever the guy comes around, he starts going, he's gone. He's gone. He's gone. He's dead. He's gone. And I immediately recognized that it wasn't the shooter. And because I saw the shooter, I saw the last two muzzle blasts, and I saw his face, and I knew it was a skinny person. And the guy that came around, his name was Tim Dietrich, and I had my gun pointed towards him, and I immediately like I said, I recognized it wasn't the kid who shot me. So I just indexed my finger on the side of the weapon, and all my training just kicked in. It was just all the years and years and years of training and shooting guns, and I'm a firearms instructor, and all that came back. And I realized that fully loaded weapon, and I was like, all right, get your finger outside the trigger guard. I was in an open field. I didn't have a target. So I decided to kind of ground the weapon in front of me whenever he told me that hey, he's gone. So it takes me, so this is maybe 15 seconds into this whenever Tim gets there. And I'm trying to process he's gone. It's like, all right, he said he killed himself. He said he shot you and he shot himself. And then he ended up wrecking. So while Tim's there, I said, okay. I said, I need you to call 911, tell them officer down, Publix parking lot in Oakleaf. It's like, roger that, I'm on it. And then another guy comes up and I said, hey, I need you to call my office. I gave them the phone number and our duty supervisor. I said, I need you to call him and say, hey, Drew Stokes has been shot. He's in the Publix parking lot. So I knew at that point that if I was going to survive, it was probably going to be up to me. It's not that other people weren't capable, but I've just had more training. That's all. So I decided to select and direct people of what I wanted them to do. And then we have a training we call STAR training, and it's basically survival mindset training, and I actually guest instruct there as well. So when we do the STAR training, part of the things that the guys teach us, we have some former Kansas City SWAT guys that teach the class, and one thing they told us as a SWAT medic is keep the blood in a container, keep the blood in a container, keep the blood in a container, keep the blood in a container. And I was a container. And I told them, I said, you've got to keep the blood in a container, keep the blood in a container. Because at this point, I could see a big river of blood coming down beside me. It was big because they had poked a lot of holes in me at this point. So I said, keep the blood in a container. So they started putting paper towels. By this point, people are starting to come from everywhere. I mean, there's probably 10 people around me. A lot of these people I haven't even met. Still don't even know their names. But one in particular that came out was a girl named Shelby Barrios. She was a hairdresser at a local Great Clips. And she was 4 months pregnant, but she wanted to go to nursing school. And she comes out, so she's on my left side, no PPE gear whatsoever, and she's starting to plug holes with. By this time, they get paper towels out there. So I'm laying there, and I'm thinking, all right, I've got all these people all over me, and I said to myself, Drew, you got to wiggle the toes, man, wiggle the toes. So I felt my toes wiggle in my boots. And everything that I've ever learned about survival is positive mental attitude plus 98.6. That's what I've been taught my entire career. You've got to have positive mental attitude, and you've got to have that body temperature. I knew I had the body temperature because it was, 1,000 degrees outside that day, and I was laying on black asphalt. So I was quite sure I had the body temperature.
You were warm enough.
I was definitely warm enough. There's no doubt about that. And then I had the positive mental attitude. So I was setting goals. I was like, man, just get to this minute, wiggle the toes, do this, and then another guy who's a retired Marine whom I still haven't met. I remember him saying, he's like, hey, I got some Quick Clot. Do you want me to pour Quick Clot in you? I was like, yes, absolutely. It was the old powdered kind. So he poured it in the hole in my shirt. None of it made it to the wound. None of it. Not a bit. So it was all inside my shirt. Whenever I got my uniforms back, I was like, that's the Quick Clot. So, and we still have the uniforms. I'll go through that later. So about this time, I'm laying there, and I've got all these people around me, and I hear the most beautiful sound that you can ever hear. And that's a 2017 Dodge Charger, Clay County Sheriff's Department, coming at me at 145 miles an hour. I hear the cavalry coming. And again, those sirens were a huge morale boost for me. It was huge just to hear it because I'm like, all right, they're here. They're coming. They're here. The first guy on the scene is a guy named Rick Miller with the Clay County Sheriff's Department. I hear a ruckus going on. Then I hear another guy whom later turns out to be Jacob Hawkins come up, and the only thing I hear him say is signal 60, which I didn't know, which apparently meant suicide. In their language, it was suicide. Talking about the other guy, and I was telling them that they probably shouldn't worry about him. They should worry about me in a different way.
He's taking care of himself.
Yeah. So I hear Jake. I can hear him running towards me. Let me back up for a second. Before that, the Publix manager gets there. And Publix manager, someone kicks my gun away from me. So I've got my gun in my hand. They kicked my gun away from me, and I said, "That's my gun. Give me my damn gun back." And they kicked the gun back to me, and it goes around in a circle. Of course, the barrel ends up pointing at my forehead.
Nice. They saw that in the movies, probably.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking, I've had a bad day at this point. So I take the weapon and I pull it back underneath me, about to my chest right here. So what I was worried about was somebody was going to try to grab it and think it has a safety on it. So I actually tried to unload it because I was certain that there were so many people around. I was certain there wasn't another shooter, and if there was, he probably wasn't going to get to me. So I actually unloaded the weapon. I dumped the magazine out of the magazine well. I tried to get the one out of the chamber, and I didn't have the strength to do it, and I wasn't going to ask anybody else. So I said, all right, if I'm going to have one, I might as well have 13. So I reload the weapon, put it back in front of me. So this is when I hear Jake coming. And so when Jake's coming, I hear, I start going, again, it's instinctive to me. I start going, I'm a cop, I'm a cop, I'm a cop, I'm a cop, I'm a cop. Again, it's what we've learned in our survival training is that because we wear a non-standard uniform, I'm wearing a brown uniform that says CBP Federal Agent on the back of it, and I've got a 40 caliber handgun in my hand. And Jake's coming at me, and he's got a 45, which I don't know at the time. So I just start screaming, I'm a cop, because that's what I've been trained, because I didn't want him to come around and put a 45 in me because he sees a guy laying there with a gun. It could be, who knows? It could be some sort of response. He clicks in, sees a gun, shoots somebody.
You don't know what dispatch told him either.
Right. So, and I had enough at that point. So I didn't need another 45 round. So, and it worked. Whether it doesn't matter. It worked. So he comes around, Jake comes around, he comes to my side and he says, hey, I'm Jacob Hawkins with the Clay County Sheriff's Department. You're golden. You're going to be fine. So again, little goals. And that was another huge morale booster. And it helped me with the positive mental attitude. Like, all right, I've got somebody here and he says I'm going to be okay. Maybe it's not that bad. So he looks at me and he goes, hey man, I've got to put a tourniquet on that left leg. And again, through our survival training, they make us put tourniquets on each other, and they make us do it right. Yeah. We have to do it right to pass the class. And I'd just been through tourniquet training about a month before. I'd actually been through our survival course, so I knew what was coming. And Jake's a pretty strong guy, and him and Shelby put the tourniquet on me, and they tightened it down, and it was all the pain I needed. So then just to make it a little bit better, they put one on my left arm as well. So I have 5 gunshot wounds and 2 tourniquets. And I don't know how much pain God lets us feel, but whatever it was, whatever the maximum is, I'm pretty sure I got it that afternoon. So now it turned out that we probably didn't need the tourniquet on the leg, but it was I had severe internal bleeding from the liver laceration. So Jake goes on, once they get the tourniquets on, and I'm screaming. There's no doubt about it. I'm screaming. I'm not happy. So Jake's like, listen, I gotta figure out. So we're waiting on the fire station to get there. So Jake starts doing a finger sweep on me, and he finds the hole that's underneath my right arm. He finds that one, the first shot. And so it's bleeding. So he just sticks his finger in it. And when he stuck his finger in the hole, I did a push-up. Jake used to be a professional bull rider, and I did a push-up and bucked him off. And he come back. He said, "I can't." He goes, "You can't do that again, man." He goes, "I got to stop this." So the Clay County Sheriff's Department provides every one of their deputies with a medic bag, and Jake had just went through combat medic school, and also had done a refresher like several weeks before. So Jake was able to. He told Rick Miller to go get his medic bag. So he plugged a hole in his finger, and he'd taken the tourniquet off of Rick too to put on my leg, which is kind of funny. So the sheriff's department here is fantastic in the way they equip their deputies. They're ready at all times for anything, and the sheriff has just been fantastic, and they're a very well run department. So Jake comes up and finally puts an occlusive dressing on my side. That's when Fire Station 26 gets there. They roll me over, and Jake said I looked very gray. He said my gums were gray. Everything was gray. He knew the Lieutenant, Stacy Matthewson. He knew Stacy because, I mean, it's a small county, and these guys all know each other. And he told Stacy what all was going on. And so they flipped me over, and then that's whenever they put me onto the stretcher and then put me into the back of the ambulance. I remember laying in the back of the ambulance. They're trying to get an IV started, and I could see in the firemen's faces, I could see in the paramedics, I knew it was bad. I could just tell because they were nervous, trying to start an IV and stuff on me, and I could tell that it was not good. But we kept going, and I said, "Come on, guys, we got to go. Well, Jake peeks his head inside the ambulance. He goes, "Hey, man," he goes, I need to know what happened." He goes, "Your boss is on the way. My boss is on the way. I've got to know. You've got to tell me what happened." And I just looked at him. I said, "The coward shot me in the back," because I thought I'd shot in the back, and it was actually in the side at that point. So he goes, "That's all I needed," and he closed the back of the ambulance, and we started going. I told the guys driving, Tommy was driving. I said, "We got to go. We got to go now." So we start going, and now this part I'm about to tell you, I didn't remember till later. Whenever the paramedic Stacy told me. So we're on the way back, and we're on the way to the hospital. And apparently, I asked Stacy. I said, "Am I going to die?" And he goes, "You got a 50-50 shot." And I found that out later. I said, "Hey, man, next time just tell me I'm going to live. I'm not going to know the difference."
60-40 at least.
So we had a chuckle about that afterwards. And I told the story at the awards ceremony. So we became very close with Fire Station 26 and myself. So they get me to I pass out on the way to the hospital because of the bleeding. And Stacy said he could tell because my pleural cavity was blowing up. He said he could see it in my stomach. It was getting really distended. So he knew it was bad, but he never told me that. So I remember going into the ambulance bay at Orange Park Medical Center. I remember the shimmy of the ambulance, and I woke up. And they had me at about a 45-degree angle sitting in there. And I'm kind of a jokester. It's just who I am naturally. And so they take me out the back of the ambulance, and they take me through the door. And I look around at the trauma staff is all looking at me, and I said, "Hey, this is one way to beat the line, isn't it?" I started laughing, although I was in a lot of pain. And then I saw my friend Bill Freehafer was sitting there, and he gave me a big thumbs up. And then my direct supervisor, his name's Steve Wood, and I looked at him. I said, "Hey, Woody, how you doing?" He goes, "Man, I'm doing fine." And he just started crying, and that's the last I remember.
So last you remember, you passed out then, or?
Yeah, I passed out later on. So when they got me in the trauma bay, one of the trauma nurses, her name's Madonna Stotzenberg, she said that I told her I wasn't going to die, and she agreed with me. So what they did was they immediately took me into surgery, and the lead surgeon was a guy named Dr. Elias Sirakoglu, who is amazing. There was another surgeon in there. Her name was Dr. Siotat, who I still have never met. But she was a cardiothoracic surgeon. So they get me in, they open me up, and they find a bleeder in my liver. And this is what I've been told. So they find a bleeder in my liver. During this time, apparently the shooter's friends had decided that they were going to come to the hospital and finish me off. There was a credible threat.
Really?
Yeah, there was a credible threat that they were going to come finish me off. So at that time, we had Clay County Sheriff's Department, everybody from Air and Marine Operations. There was guys actually in the operating room with me. My guys were and Clay County Sheriff's Department were in the OR, ready to go, armed and ready to go to protect the staff and myself, which I still think is pretty unbelievable that those guys did that. I'll never be able to thank them. I don't know how to thank them. So anyway, we go through surgery number one. Surgery number one happens. They think they got the liver. They've got clips on my liver, and so they stitch me back up, and they bring me out in front of. At this time, there's several hundred people in the waiting room. I didn't know I had that many friends, and then I crashed. I died right there in front of them. Something gave loose in my liver.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was gone. And so they wheeled me back into the OR, opened me back up, and start the process all over again. During that point, the lead surgeon, Dr. Sirakoglu, comes out and tells my wife Amanda that I'm going to die, and she needs to prepare herself because I'm gone, which was pretty devastating for her. Obviously, I was out, so I didn't know any of this till after the fact. So he goes, "But I'm going to go back in and try." So he goes back in, and from what I was told, one of the other trauma surgeons called my time of death, and he said no. And he kept working on my liver till he found the bleeder. And he found it. And whether it was all the prayers, whether it was, I don't know what happened, but I can just tell you that it worked. It was pretty incredible. He's a young surgeon that's got a thing for first responders or anybody. I'm sure anybody gets the same treatment, but he wasn't going to let me die. And he didn't, obviously. He's just a good man.
So you went to cardiac arrest. They called your time of death, and this man refused to acknowledge either of those and kept fighting.
That's from what I understand.
That's incredible.
That's the story that I was told. That I was bleeding so much. I went through 19 trauma units of blood, which is a lot. I mean, as you know, a trauma unit, pint of red blood cells, pint of white blood cells, pint of plasma, pint of blood. But all that is one trauma unit. I went through 19. It got to the point to where I went through so much blood that they were catching it and then putting it back into my body. They actually went to a point and said, went to the waiting room and said, "Hey, we need blood." And guys were standing there just like, take all you want. Pretty incredible that your friends would do that for you. Those guys are pretty awesome, but it turns out that I didn't need it. So then, all the blood I have in my body now came from other people, which is pretty cool.
That's when we talk about the brotherhood and the sisterhood. I mean, there is no better example than the story you just told up to this point.
Yeah. So the next day, so this was the night of September 26th, morning of September 27th. They finally get me stabilized, and it's touch and go at this point. They don't know if I'm going to make it, but they at least get me stabilized for the second time. Hospital has a blood drive the next day. The community raises 300 units of blood for the 19 that we had just taken out, which is spectacular, and I didn't know this till months later. But yeah, the community came up and in Jacksonville, Orange Park, they put 300 units of blood back in the blood bank, because of my incident, which is just incredible. Every time I think about it, it's just, people are just so generous giving the fluids out of their own body. Is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. And that's who people really are.
I agree that's who people really are. You see Facebook, that type of thing. That's not real people. People are generally good, and I have faith in mankind. I really, really do. Yeah. So we get through those couple surgeries. Later on is when they find that I'm actually going septic, because that's when they found the hole that was in my rectum, or my lower colon. And so they had to go back in emergency surgery again. And this Dr. Janine Jordan, she goes in and then has to fix that. And then obviously, they have to put a stoma in so that I can heal. So I remember I woke up around probably October 7th or 8th, sometime around there. So during that time I was out, I remember two things. I remember coming conscious twice. One is I remember opening my eyes, and I knew I had all this. I knew what had happened. I was sedated, but I knew I'd been shot. I knew I was in the hospital, and I opened my eyes, and I saw a guy shooting a gun out of a gold window. I saw that, and I could hear something about shooting in Las Vegas, and I passed out. And then I obviously, after I regained consciousness, that was October 1st, the day of the Las Vegas shooting, 2016. And then I remember one of my friends, this guy named Jeff Burks, was sitting at the, I remember opening my eyes, I raised my head up, and I saw him because they were standing guard at my door. And so I looked over at him, and I lifted my head up, and I squinted, and I looked, and he shot me the finger. So I shot him the finger back, and I just went down, and then I guess he told my parents, he's like, he's in there somewhere. so he's there. So they ended up bringing me out of the coma sometime around October 6th, 7th, sometime around then is when they brought me out. But the damage was pretty catastrophic up to that point. I'd had 10 surgeries just in that short amount of time.
That's amazing. I've had Dr. Joseph Ibrahim, who was a trauma surgeon in Orlando, and he responded to the Pulse shootings. And then I'm just about to have one from England that responds to a lot of the knife and gun crime in London. Those people are incredible, and that's our job as medics. Is there's only so much we can do for a trauma patient. It's so frustrating, but the reality is, like you were screaming at them, we just got to get you there as soon as possible. Right.
And that's exactly right. And the Orange Park Medical Center, they're a world-class facility, and they did fantastic. They did that day. For some reason, everybody did everything right, and I was allowed to live.
No, you were definitely meant to live. There's no
doubt about it. I mean, everybody they went above and beyond to save me. There's no doubt about it, and I can't thank them enough for their extra effort.
Yeah, and it's crazy because you're telling the date, so we're sitting here almost a year exactly from
it's almost a year later. So yeah, I went through. I had a severe case of ICU delirium. So I was actually going crazy when I was in the trauma ICU. I was seeing things on TV that weren't happening. I was waking up thinking I was in different rooms. At one point, I woke up. I thought I was on a boat. That I could hear the waves slapping to the side. I actually heard. We're talking about the CrossFit side of this. I actually at some point I woke up and I heard these people talking beside me. The owner of I go to a gym called Blackfin CrossFit, and the owner's name is Mark Hoffman, and his father-in-law's name is Jim Turner.
Is he related to Chris Hoffman?
Yes.
The firefighter?
It's his brother.
Yeah, that's my friend.
Yeah.
I know Chris very well.
Yeah.
That's why Blackfin sounds familiar.
Yeah. So anyway, this is all hallucination I'm having, but I hear Mark Hoffman and Jim Turner are going to repossess my car because I owe them $37. And I'm hearing this, and I'm like, so I've got this. I'm intubated. I've got all this stuff going on, and I'm sitting there and I'm laying and I'm trying to talk, and I'm like, no, these are fantastic people. There's no way that this could ever happen. And anyway, they go, and then I told the story to Mark later, and he just laughed. I'm like, there's no way these two fine men are going to take somebody's car for $37. But it's just one of the things, and I don't know why that stuff pops in your head. Who knows? But it was all hallucination. And they had told Amanda that they didn't know if I would come out of this delirium or not, but I did. I was able to come out of it.
I just want to interject for a second. Sorry to interrupt you, but I'd never heard the word or the phrase ICU delirium until literally a week ago. I got a friend of mine coming on, and she's a former firefighter, paramedic. She actually had a near-death thing in a car crash. She got rear-ended by a truck while she was on I-4. But she's an ICU nurse now. And it's something we never think about. So you're there, and you got all the lights pinging and all the monitors flashing in your face.
Right.
And it, again, we always talk about sleep. It totally disrupts your sleep pattern.
Exactly.
And that's one of the roots of the delirium.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So, being in a medically induced coma, I'd always thought you come up from a coma, hell, you've been sleeping for 2 weeks, you might as well be fine. But boy, that was not the case at all. So when I got up, I had very little use of my arms, my legs. I couldn't walk. I couldn't eat. I couldn't talk. I had to relearn how to do all these things again. It was a very humbling experience. But I was lucky. My wife Amanda was there. My mom was there. My dad was there. My grandfather, my uncle, my aunts. Everybody was there, and then all of my friends from work too, to push me along. And it was pretty amazing to have all these people there. And then I knew. It's like, all right. Once I woke up and Amanda told me, I knew I'd been shot. I didn't know. I knew I got shot at Publix. So they woke me up. They asked me these questions. They're like, do you know where you are? I'm like, I'm in the hospital. They said, which hospital? It's Orange Park Medical Center. And I go, okay. Where, do you know what happened? I said, I got shot. They said, where did you get shot? I said, in a Publix parking lot. I go, okay. And then they said, what month is it? And I said, September. And they went, aha! It's October. I'm like, well, how long have I been asleep? That's not a fair question, So we went through that, and then Amanda was telling me what all was going on. So when she was telling me about my injuries, I was laying there, and I was like, all right. And then she goes, just so you know, you're on a colostomy bag. And I was like, I reached down and I felt it. And I was like, man, that sucks. But I was like, I'm alive. I was like, okay, we'll deal with this. And she goes, you'll have a reversal in 6 months. And again, what she didn't bother telling me is that they didn't know if I was going to have a reversal at all. They didn't know if it get fixed, but she was like, you'll be fine in 6 months. We'll have it reversed. You'll be good to go. So again, those little things are morale boosters when you're going through something traumatic like this. And just that little bit of good news, although I was in bad shape, and immediately I got to thinking, okay, I can do this. So I just got to, it sucks. It happened, but I got to recover. I got to get better. So at no point was I going to just lay around and start feeling sorry for myself. That wasn't an option. And it hasn't been an option. And it's never going to be an option. So I started right then, and they're like, in a couple days, it's probably mid-October, they're like, we got to get you out of bed. I'm like, part of it, I was trying to leave in my delirium. I was like, call my friend Jim, tell him to fly a helicopter down here. They'll wheel me out. Just take me home. At one point, Amanda she goes, all right, you know what? Go ahead and get up. And I was like trying to sit up. And like, oh shit, I can't get up. So she was tough on me when I needed to be tough, and she was mothering to me whenever it needed to be done. But she was absolutely amazing. So it come to the point to where it was time for me to get up, And my friend Ryan was there. He came up from Orlando, and he's like, "All right, man, you got to do it. You got to get up." So I remember them. I just couldn't believe in 3 weeks how much I had lost. I mean, to the point where I couldn't stand up. My belly was very distended because my intestines were swollen, so I had this gigantic belly, and I was like, all right, we got to go. So I tried to get up, and I couldn't get up, and they had to help me stand up, and that was a little bit demoralizing for me because I'm a big guy. I'm a big, strong guy, and I was in the middle of atrophy at that point. And for me not to be able to stand up or walk or do anything for myself, it took a little bit for me to just kick myself in the ass and get going.
Well, you had so much trauma to your lower extremities too. I mean, just anatomically, it must have been extremely hard to will your body to put pressure on all these places that have been you know, shredded.
Yep, that's exactly right. So I got up. They put me in that thing. It's like a hand truck. It's called a combolizer, but to me, it's like a hand truck. They were wheeling me around in it, and I'd had enough of that thing. So the next day I got up and I walked around to the other side of the bed, and I sat down in a chair, and my friend Brian Ferguson came and see me. And then a Navy guy was in Air Marine operations with us who left and went to the airlines. But he flew out and see me, and then I was able to walk to the nursing station. And then another day later, I was able to walk to the end of the nursing station. And then I was able to walk over blocks a couple days after that. And then I was able to walk outside. So and once I started going, and this is where the whole CrossFit thing comes in, I just kept going. I mean, I was going to push myself because I didn't like for people to have to do stuff for me. I didn't like that at all. So I wanted to do it for myself. And that's when I started walking again. One of the worst things I did was I had to go through a swallow test to be able to eat because I like to eat. And again, I was kind of in delirium at this time as well. And I'll never forget Christy Love, who's my nurse, trauma nurse. She was fantastic. She tells a story. I came back. I just failed my second swallow test. So they were still feeding me via tube in my nose, and I was irritated. I was mad as
I'm sure it must have been horrible.
So they wheeled me back into trauma ICU, and apparently I looked at her. I said, "You're the reason why I'm on cupcake restriction." So I wanted cupcakes for some reason, and I have no idea why, because I'm not a big cupcake guy. So during recovery, people keep bringing me cupcakes and donuts in the room. I'm like, "Why are you guys bringing this stuff?" Like,
I proclaimed it before.
Yeah. So anyway, so in my recovery, I kept, the rehab guys kept coming in. Rich, a rehab guy, kept coming in every day, man. They were pushing me and pushing me and pushing me. And I got to the point where I was doing real well. So I was supposed to be in the hospital for 6 months. I transferred to the inpatient rehab on October 23rd.
Oh,
so
wow.
Less than a month later, I was in inpatient rehab.
Wow. That's just that sheer determination.
That was determination.
Positive thinking.
So I get the rehab, and and then they start the physical therapist. Sorry, physical therapist. Please cut all that brain fart out. So I get to the physical therapist, and I get to talking to her, and she's like, "What's your background? What's your physical fitness background?" I was like, "I was a CrossFitter," and she's like, "Me too." And I'm like, this is going to be fun. So she starts getting, and she starts in with CrossFit style rehab workouts right away.
Handstand push-ups straight away.
yeah, handstand push-ups, deadlifting, doing all kinds of stuff. No, but she has me. They have the stairs in there, so she has me walking upstairs, walking downstairs, sitting down, sitting up, sitting down, sitting up. She has and this is over the course of a couple of days. She has me throwing a ball against a trampoline and catching it, and doing some squats, some air squat. Obviously I'm holding on the rails because I'm not a very flexible guy to begin with. I was even I was as flexible as a telephone pole at this point, and but she starts working on me. And I talked to the trauma doc. I'm like, I want to go home. I want to go home. And he said, if you work hard, you'll be home on Halloween. And I said, okay. I said, you're on. I said, I'll make this happen. So during this time, I'll tell you kind of a funny story. During this time, I have, so I'm on a colostomy bag. And I start having these feelings like I got to poop, right? So I start having these feelings, and so I'm walking down the hall. So I wanted to walk around. They're like, you need to walk around some to keep things going. I'm like, all right. So I'll get up and I'll walk around this. I mean, I had all these monitors with me, and I had the wound vac on. on my midline. So I had all this stuff with me, and I'm like, man, I feel like I gotta go, So I'm walking down the hall, and then I see one of the doctors there, and she comes walking down, and I look at her. I said, Doc, I said, I feel like I gotta poop, but I'm on a colostomy bag. She goes, it's just the sweetest voice. She goes, it's okay, honey. It's just a sensation. It'll go away. So I went, all right. So I unclenched and crapped my pants right there in front of her. So I looked at her and I went, huh.
That was a hell of a sensation.
And I turned around and I'm kind of feeling bad at this point. So I go back, I get myself cleaned up, I change, I sit down, I fall asleep in the bed. I wake up, and the chief of trauma is sitting there, and I told him the story. And he's like, once he picked himself up off the floor from laughing, he's like, your colon's still making mucus, and you got to get rid of that. I'm like, thanks. You guys could have told me about that beforehand. It saved me a bit of embarrassment. So, but I try to look, I try to make light of this stuff and have fun with it, because it happened, and there's nothing I can do to change it. And maybe somebody else that listens to this, however far down the road, will say, you know what, the same thing happened to me.
Yeah. So, they remember never to unclench when they're walking around.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I kept fighting in rehab. I kept fighting, and I went home on Halloween. So 6 weeks after the shooting, I was back here in this house.
That's amazing. Now, I want to just go back in time just for a moment, because I should have really asked this before, but how did you initially get into CrossFit? Because I know we're about to talk about that.
So this was 2012, September. I was a fat, disgusting mess. And I remember I was driving down the road, and I could see my cheeks out of my eyes. I could see how fat I was.
Now, what had got you to that point? Like, where were you at your fittest?
Oh, I wasn't at my fittest then. Before then,
yeah,
it was bad. And it just continued to get worse.
Okay,
so I had gone through like some weight, some fad diet type stuff, and I like to run. So I would actually run, 3 or 4 miles. But it's still, my diet was crap, and I was single at the time, and I was just eating like crap, and it just showed. So I had enough. So I looked for a CrossFit gym. I'll never forget. I was at the intersection of College Drive and 220, County Road 220 here in Clay County, and I see Blackfin CrossFit. So I call, and I don't get an answer. And then I go back in with her, and I go in. I see them working out. I see the door open. It's because it's got a big garage door. I see the door open, and I'm like, there's no way I can go in there with those people. So I left, and then I called again. I called Mark again, and he's like, hey, I told him, I was like, listen, I'm a fat piece of crap, and I need some help. I said, I like to run, but I said, I'm really good at running, but I'm just overweight. And he goes, come in. He goes, we'll do an on-ramp. We'll see what you like it, and tell me what you think. So we get in, and then I do so my second day of on-ramp, I leave. On my way home, I puke in my truck going down the road. All over the windshield, everything. I can't pull over.
Do you remember what your first workout was?
This one had something to do with like wall ball sit-ups. So this was a lot of wall ball work. There was no weights or anything involved, but I was just so out of shape that it just all came out. And I sent Mark a text. I'm like, I just puked all inside my truck. He goes, he responded with, it'll get better, I promise. So and it did, and it got better. And I got to the point where I was probably 290 then, and I probably got down to about 225, 230.
Oh, wow.
And for me,
significant, because you're a big guy anyway. That's
right,
probably
for me,
lean.
225 is like I got a 34-inch waist if I'm at 225. Yeah. That's because I'm just a big dude. So I get down, and I'm doing well, and I'm starting to compete, and I'm starting to go. I remember competing at CrossFit Pinnacle down in Ocala. I've done several competitions at this point. And I'm at this time I catch the bug. I'm totally addicted to it, and I just start getting better. And then the CrossFit community is so supportive and so outstanding that you go there and you start making friends. And I like having friends that are not. I love my work friends, but also love my CrossFit friends, and they don't necessarily intertwine all the time. So it's nice to have people that look at the world through a different prism than you do. Because it's they give you a whole lot different perspective, and it really helped me during this whole process of recovery and getting better. Having that family with me the whole time was absolutely crucial. So it was almost 5 years to the day when I started going to Blackfin when I got shot.
Okay, yeah, and that community is so important. I did, like I said before we started recording, I started CrossFit about 10 years ago, and it was some firemen in Anaheim that got me into it. But then when I moved over to Florida, I was just in the YMCA doing it on my own, making mistakes, moving wrong. But then when I joined a gym a few years ago now, an actual CrossFit gym, then I got the other part. And that sense of community is so important. And we talk about tribes, and we have our tribe in our job. You have your crew,
Sure.
and I have my station. But having that other group and finding a good CrossFit gym, you want to have that group that you actually feel a part of. But yeah, I mean, they're like a second family.
Right, and my CrossFit gym was no different. They are my other family. There's no doubt about it. So for my injuries, going back to that, the doctors told me once I got out, they're like, so I asked them part of the reasons why I lived, and they said, well, your physical fitness had a huge amount to do with it, because my lats were so strong. Because when I got shot, I was about 270. So I put the weight back on, but I was a different 270 than I was 290 before. I mean, I was a very muscular man. And, that muscle was able to slow that bullet down enough to where it wasn't able to tap my spine. It stopped about 2 millimeters short. And then my heart was able to take, because I was in such good cardio shape, that my heart was able to take the loss of blood and keep from that shock. It was able to keep going and be able to do just fine. And they credit a lot of that to my cardio.
Yeah. I've had several guests that have been through accidents, trauma, and every single one of them attributes them still being alive from that. I mean, Matt Chan, the CrossFitter, who's a firefighter as well, right. He had basically a near fatal accident, just got thrown forward on his bike, and the seat went through into the branch that comes immediately off his femoral artery, but he's so muscular that it didn't actually penetrate. Didn't burst through the skin, and he survived. But anyone that had not been in the condition that he was in would have bled out and died right there.
Right. And Coach Glassman says in CrossFit, he says, yeah, you may get injured in CrossFit, but I'll tell you one place you're certainly going to get injured, and that's sitting on your couch not doing anything. And I certainly believe every word that he says of that. And he's absolutely right. It's a sport where you may get hurt. Of course, any sport you're going to get hurt. But his words meant a lot to me whenever I heard them, and to be able to know that all the things I've been through in CrossFit, all the pain that I've been through, making myself better, it saved my life. Yeah. And it's all about the amount of effort that you put into it, for sure. All
right, so let's talk about your return to the gym post injury. What were you able to do day one, and then what was the progress after that?
So I got out of rehab on October 31st. I was home for about a week. And then I had some abdomen pain, so they made me drink some barium fluid. It turns out I had a fissure in my intestines, so I was leaking. And so they put me back in the trauma ICU. And the trauma doc says, hey, he goes, we're going to have to do an endoscopy. We got to figure out where this hole is. And so they did the endoscopy. They couldn't find anything in my stomach. And he comes back, he said, listen, you're not going to be able to eat for 2 weeks. We're going to feed you through a PICC line with TPN. And I'm like, I look at him, I said, that's funny. I thought you just said I couldn't eat for 2 weeks. You know how hard I worked so I could eat? Because you're not eating for 2 weeks. I'm like, ugh. So, and then you don't realize how in this football season, you don't even know how many Arby's We Have the Meats commercials are on until you can sit here for 2 weeks.
You don't have them.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there like, here's this tube I'm attached to me for 20 hours a day that they're feeding me through. So I finally get through that, and then so the week before Thanksgiving, I'm able to start eating again. So I actually go to Chili's with a whole bunch of family members and work folks, and I have my first beer then. So I have like a half a beer, and it's all I can get down, because my stomach had shrank. So it was the next week after that's when I started going back to CrossFit. So I actually went back in December. I started going to CrossFit, and I walked back into the doors of the gym. It was just like being home again. It was outstanding. And the coaches, when I would get there, they would go through and we would do the workout, and then they would scale every single movement for me. So I started, we had the assault bikes. So I would just get in and I'd pedal the assault bike for 30 minutes. And then I would take a 5-pound wall ball, and I would just, I would stand up. I wasn't able to squat. The I did do some squatting, and then I got in trouble for it from the doctors. But I was able to throw the wall ball up and just do wall ball shots. And then I did, we had a 15-pound bar that we used for the CrossFit Kids classes. And so I was able to do some cleans and do some overhead pushes with that. And then whenever everybody was running, they did a 200, 400, 800 meter run. I would just walk out. I'd walk 100 meters while they were gone. I would walk out and walk back, and I just kept myself moving. And then eventually I was able to squat all the way down and get the wall ball. And then I was able to clean 35 pounds. I was able to clean 45 pounds, and then I was able to do a little bit of deadlifting. And then I'm a big NASCAR guy, so I go to Speed Weeks, and while I'm at Speed Weeks, the trauma surgeon calls and they said, we think you're ready for your colostomy reversal. So I'm like, sweet. So just at the end of the Daytona 500, February 23rd, they scheduled me for my stoma reversal. And so I go through that process of the stoma reversal. I was in the hospital for another 8 days. And that was one of the most painful procedures I've ever had in my life. I couldn't believe how much it hurt. But we go through it. We get through it. So then I start recovering in March. I'm like, all right, I'm starting to get better. And then I go in. I really wanted to go back to work. And I had went back to work on January 1st. Basically through all of January, I went back for about 3 or 4 weeks on light duty in the office, which was, you go around a bunch of alpha males with a colostomy bag, and you can imagine what's going to happen. So anything you can think happened did. It was fun. We had a good time. They were phenomenal to me. My entire office they rolled out the red carpet for me while I was there.
But that was 3 months after being shot. You were back on light duty.
Yeah. I was back in the office, and they didn't. They're such a classy organization. They didn't go and say, okay, you got to go sit and answer the phones or talk on radios or do something. They didn't do that. They let me just integrate back into the office and do normal office work, just as I do any other day when I would go in. They didn't make me feel like, well, you're the guy that's hurt, so you're the guy that's got to take the crappy jobs. They never did that at one time. They're just such a well-run organization. It was phenomenal.
I think a lot of agencies out there can learn from that. To put that in there.
I just can't tell you how much that helped me, and it made me want to come back to work more and get back with my folks. So I was able to go back to work full time on August the 9th. The trauma surgeons said, okay, you're good to go. So I got to go back to work. And at that time, that's whenever I was done with my outpatient rehab. So I went to outpatient rehab. I had maybe 70 trips to outpatient rehab. My guy, Ronnie Acuna, who's a phenomenal guy, he knew I was a CrossFitter, and every day he pushed me. And eventually I got to the point when I could start driving myself back and forth to rehab. I would leave rehab facility and go to the CrossFit gym. And I would do both. I would do rehab and CrossFit at the same time. And Ronnie encouraged it. And he was he helped me so much as far as like my movements and getting me stretched back out and being able to do squats and my balance. And he's just such a kind, gentle soul. And he was exactly what I needed. He pushed me. If I get tired, he'd be like, "Come on, man, let's go. You got to go." And he was awesome. He still is awesome. So eventually I got when they cleared me to go back to work, I'm like, well, if I can go back to work, then I can go back to full-time CrossFit. And they're like, do what you do. He's like, just go don't change anything. You just keep doing what you're doing. So they released me to go back to work. And then, so that's when I started going back into CrossFit, and I was having some trouble running because of my midline scar. But anyway, I can run more now. And now I'm back to, at this point, now I'm, 6-7 months past that, and I'm back to about 90% of where I was. So I'm back to, I could deadlift like 435 pounds before, and I'm at just south of a 400 deadlift again. And I'm within 20 pounds of my clean and jerk. I just did my first pull-ups this week.
Congratulations!
Thank you, which was huge. I've RX'd a couple workouts. I can do double unders again, and it's because they've pushed me at the CrossFit gym, and I've kept going. I mean, I don't want to sound conceited, but I take myself to the gym. I make myself go every day, and I make myself do the workouts. And it's just like, I feel like I'm almost back to the same guy I was September 26th at 1:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah. And I think there's something that I'm getting from this whole through line as well. Sorry to interrupt, but you obviously took your training seriously. When you describe, and I want to explore that a little bit more in a minute, but when you describe what you were thinking after being shot, the weapon safe, the nozzle direction. I keep saying nozzle. Muzzle. It's the fireman in me. Nozzle. The muzzle of the gun. The muzzle safety. Yeah. And, that motivation and that ownership of your training, I think that does carry over in rehab too. I've had some injuries, nothing even close to what you've been through. But when you said the PT and the CrossFit, that was exactly me. When I was off on workman's comp, it was CrossFit and PT and chiro and anything else you could do that would speed up the process and get you not only better, but in my case, it was injuries. It wasn't from trauma like you had. To fix the imbalances so you're even better when you return. You can see that that's exactly how you were thinking too.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I had a lot of good people pushing me. My friend Mandy Thomas, who put us together, she's a firefighter out of St. Johns County. And I'll never forget, whenever she was in rehab, she came in and she was still in fire school at the time. And she came in and was talking to me, pushing me to get back, doing the motivation thing. But I was asking her how fire school was going, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to EMT school right now," and blah blah blah. And I said, "Listen, you pay attention to that." I said, "This is probably the most important thing you're going to learn is EMT." And her husband is a paramedic as well and a firefighter in Gainesville, Brett, and they're just a fantastic, unbelievable couple. And Mandy and Brett came to rehab almost every single day. They did come every single day while I was in rehab, and it was a huge motivation. And then Blackfin did so for my anniversary, I was actually in firearms instructor school, and they did a workout where we raised some money for the local sheriff's department. And when I was down, my family started using the hashtag hard to kill or H2K. So we had, which I didn't know, we were going to do a hard to kill workout. And so one of the local companies, our t-shirt company called Stay the Course, actually made t-shirts for us and donated them. So everybody bought t-shirts, and 100% of the money went to the Clay County Sheriff's Department. So we did the hard to kill workout. So Mandy shows up at the workout, and she does it in full bunker gear. So this is the hard to kill workout is a mile run. So the way Mark made it was you're just sailing through your day, and then all of a sudden you're served a crab sandwich. So easy mile run, come back in, bam. It was we did 75 burpee sandbag cleans at 75 pounds, 50 front squats with a sandbag at 75 pounds, 75 wall balls with a 30-pound wall ball for men, 20 pounds for the girls. Then back to 50 sandbag front squats, 75 burpee sandbag cleans again, and then run a mile with the sandbag. And we did it as a partner. There's no way I could do that. Hell, it'd be hard for an elite athlete to do that workout. So Mandy shows up. She knows the workout, and she's in full bunker gear. I'm like, Mandy, what are you doing? So she's my partner.
And this is in probably 90 plus degrees.
Oh, yeah. It was a Saturday morning. We did actually on September 29th is when we did it. And, it's a morning, it's 1,000% humidity outside, one of those days. So I'm like, well, if Mandy's going to do it in her bunker gear, I'm going to put my kit on. So I put my kit on, and we did it. Her and I did the workout together in like 78 minutes. It was rough.
78 minutes is a long time to be grinding.
Yeah, and we were grinding, both doing it the hard time. And she, I don't know if you know Mandy or not, but she quitting is not in her vocabulary.
Yeah, well, I want to just make sure I say this. Mandy, thank you so much, because she reached out to me. That's the sad thing is I didn't know your story well, because every other day on my social media, I see another, law enforcement officer killed in the line of duty, and then add in all the firefighters that we lose, and it's this constant cascade of tragic losses. So when she reached out and told me her story, I mean, I was like, you don't have to tell me twice. This is incredible. But I want to say thank you so much, because she was absolutely the one that reached out and made this happen.
Yeah, she's a phenomenal person. So her and I are actually volunteering at a local high school as well. So I'm chairing the advisory board for Criminal Justice Academy, and I brought Mandy in to help out because I'm going to brag on Mandy a little bit. Fluent in Russian, bachelor's degree in Russian, has a degree in psychology, mom, firefighter, and still able to come volunteer at the high school. And I think that having Mandy there for these young girls to have as a role model, I think is just fantastic. And I'm just so glad have her and Brett as my friends.
But Drew, according to some people, women have no place in the fire service. Crossfitter floating Russian.
That's not my battle, but I'm telling you, she's tough, and I'll put her against most men on most days.
Amen to that. That's my stance too.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing. So, it's been she's been a big part, and then for us to be able to do this workout together was really awesome. So she was she pushed me the whole way. I think I only almost passed out twice. So it actually worked out. It worked out really well. But I don't know if we'll do it again. But if we do, maybe you and I should do it sometime.
I was going to say, let me know if you do it again. I'll come up and do it too. Yeah, I've done Murph in my gear before, and it was awful.
Yeah,
awful. That was midsummer.
Yeah.
One more person I want to make sure we talk about as well. So Mark's brother Chris.
Yeah.
Reedy Creek, we lost a fireman a few years ago, Brian Prince. And Chris came down all the way from Clay County, brought a check from Clay County's union, benevolent, to donate to Brian's family where we're doing the fundraiser for. And this was all the way down, like way south of Orlando in Polk County where we did it. So again, that to me showed me what incredible brotherhood they do have there, to come several counties over just to show up and be present on that and make a statement. So clearly Clay County is doing something very, very right.
And then the Hoffman family, they're just they're such wonderful people that reach out. They do so much good for us in the gym. I just can't tell you how much I appreciate having them. HM and Melody, was Mark and Chris's parents, are just the support they show. This family bond they have is unbelievable. And it's something it's something that everybody should strive to be like.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I've forgotten. I believe that they actually did the workout at the Blackfin as well. I'm almost certain they did. And I think they raised money there on top of what Chris brought down from the fire department. So I think they both sides, contributed. So thank you to everyone for that.
Yeah. And I'd also like to just mention Amanda, my wife, in this whole thing. The reason why my story didn't make it into mainstream media, like it normally, any one of these shootings, they generally make it into the mainstream media. And the reason why mine didn't is because Amanda didn't want it. She didn't want the notoriety. She wanted, our privacy was number one. And she didn't want people crawling around the neighborhood, looking for boohoo stories. And I think she did a phenomenal job with that. The local Clay County government was able to take our names off the property rolls, and they never found us. They never found it. If they knew who I was, they never put it out.
I couldn't find you on the bloody GPS this morning.
Yeah. So
that might be why.
Yeah. So she did a great job. Another part of the story that I haven't told you yet, and I'll circle back to when I was actually laying on the ground, is and maybe this is something that especially first responders or somebody that may be listening to this and something catastrophic happens, I want you to think about, is spousal notification. To me, this is a huge part of this story. So in my agency, we're a very Navy-centric agency, or at least my office is. I can't say the agency, just my office. And usually if something happens, the boss gets dressed up, goes notifies the spouse in person. Well, when the shooting happened and the 911 call went out, obviously all the news stations put it out as a news alert, federal agent shot, Oakleaf Publix, the whole thing. And so Amanda was she works for Chili's, and she was at one of her restaurants over in Mandarin, and she knew I was in Publix because I'd called her and told her I was going. And so she gets an alert on her phone that says federal agent shot Oakleaf Publix.
That's not how you want to hear that.
No, so she knew it was me. She was pretty sure it was me. So so our office did what we normally would do: was the boss gets dressed up, goes to the house, Amanda's not here. They don't know where they don't want to call her. They want to notify her in person. Well, she had already left, and she was in such a state of shock that she just started driving around Jacksonville. And she didn't even come towards the hospital that I was in. She ended up at a Burger King parking lot whenever somebody finally called her and said, "Where are you?" She's like, "I don't know." So they said, "Just pull over and tell us what's around you." And then finally our guys went there and picked her up and brought her to the hospital. So if it's somewhere where you can't control the information, maybe have a plan, with your chain of command and how you want your spouse, significant other, notified in case of emergency. To me, that's a huge deal, and it's a huge learning point for us. And then I'll also do a plug for Chili's that she works for. So while I was in the hospital, every day Chili's and also Mission Barbecue showed up to bring food for however many people was there. They were getting fed. So the Mission Barbecue here in Orange Park and then Chili's in Orange Park showed up with food every single day. Chili's being an outstanding organization, they gave Amanda all the time off that she needed with pay to take care of me and to get me better. And I thought that was phenomenal of them to do that and take care of their employees like that. It's little known how well this company treats their employees, but they do a fantastic job.
Yeah, and again, that's humanity. And that's
Yes.
the side that we want to hear. We know that businesses make money. We know there's some that are not so
Right.
moral, but I love hearing that. I think Publix, we've talked about a lot as well. I saw a video of them sending trucks and trucks and trucks
Right.
of supplies up north for the hurricane victims. like,
And people ask me, they're like, "Well, you going to sue Publix? You going to do that?" No, I'm not suing Publix. It's not Publix's fault I got shot. I mean, why would I even think of that? They've been, every time I walk in. So I went to Publix the day after I got out of the hospital. That was the first place I went, was to this Oak Leaf Publix where I got shot. And it just so happened, I don't know how it happened, but I walked in, and then because we didn't tell anybody we were going there, and the Fire Station 26 guys were there. They were, as soon as I walked in the door, it was the same shift, the Charlie shift, same one, same guys, same. I hobbled up to them. I had a cane, and I had my wound vac on and everything, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm Drew. I'm the guy you saved out here at the parking lot." And they all gave me big hugs, and then their bells went off and they had to run out and go do something else. So I didn't even get a chance to get a picture with them. But,
they reminded me. I saw on Facebook someone put a picture of I guess an undercover cop. It was like a joke, but he had a T-shirt that said "Not a cop."
It's definitely
we
not a
get
cop
that for you.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah. So anyway, it's just been the act of getting shot was terrible. It was awful pain, awful experience. But man, everything I've learned, and just how many good people there are on this planet has been that part of it has been such a wonderful experience. And again, to be able to work for Air Marine, who has been they have been phenomenal to me and my family through the entire process. I can't thank them enough. Along with all of Customs and Border Protection. I mean, they sent me cards from all around the country. I mean, when I was recovering and I was able to sit down and start reading the cards, there was some stuff I can't mention, but they were some pretty funny stuff.
This is an R-rated show. You can mention whatever you want.
Yeah, but not to my agency. So no, they were very good.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I love hearing, because some of the things that we talk about in this are where the ball is dropped in some agencies, and trying to learn, not bitch and complain, but say, here's the problem, here's the solution. Here's maybe where we're forgetting the human element in this particular department, to recapture that. But it's awesome hearing, your department seems like they did everything.
They did
so well.
They did everything right. So even right after I came out of the coma, Eddie Young is our guy who's our executive commissioner, and so he came out and he came down and sat next to me. The number one guy flew down from D.C. to sit next to me and say, "Hey, we're here for you, and we're going to be here for you." And my dad even asked him point blank and said, "Hey, all right, in 2 weeks, are you going to care about him?" He goes, "We're there with them forever." And I'll be damned if they haven't been. They have lived up to their word. They did that. Once I got home, the Commissioner of Customs, Kevin McAleenan, called me, and he's like, "Hey, I just want to hear your voice. I just want to know you're okay." So they brought me to DC last week for an award called the Invictus Award, or Unconquerable. So they actually flew me and Amanda up there and got to spend some time with the commissioner and our leadership in headquarters, and the rest of my family came up as well. And it was they just rolled out the red carpet for them, and for me, for them just to be able to treat my family well, because I had been up there since, and they've been good to me, but being good to my family was phenomenal. And to be able to be up there with the commissioner, the governor called. Rick Scott called while I was in the hospital, talked to Amanda, and then once I came out of the coma, when I was in the trauma ICU, we called him back, and I talked to him on the phone for a while. So it's just been an incredible experience with people. People care about us, and it doesn't get out as much as it should. But I'm telling you that there's a lot of good out there.
Yeah, and I think to highlight something that they did very right, which I hear. I've had a lot of conversations with people with widows that everyone rallies around for the brother, sister that's fighting for their life. And then a lot of these terminal diseases, when they pass, the widows say, like you were saying, a month, 2 months, like your dad was pointing out, are you still going to be here? It's so important for us, whether it's someone injured, whether it's the family of someone that's passed away, to keep checking up on them, because they have all this support. And then in a bad scenario, they don't hear. And it's not anyone being malicious. It's just us not taking the time to go, I wonder if they're okay, and just wrenching out them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's, that happens to us. They still, hey man, are you good? Are you okay? If I doing something else, if I happen to talk to somebody in DC or just at any other office, or like, hey man, how are you doing? How's your wife doing? How's your family doing? Are you guys doing all right? How are you recovering? So, and then Air Marine has taken the initiative to hire a PTSD doc for us to use. And that's, I think that's huge, to have that type of outlet that we can reach out to and talk to someone if we need it. And it's no questions asked. If you need it, you got it.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, so they've hired them. So obviously they're very familiar with you guys, your career. And
right.
So there's no surprises when you're showing up.
Right. And and she specializes in first responder PTSD as well.
Yeah. Sounds like there's a lot, we could learn a lot from your agency, I have to say.
They do they get this right. There's no doubt about it. They're very concerned about us and they recognize that mental health is a huge part of it. And I'm telling you, man, James, I feel great. I really do. I feel great. I've still got a little bit of pain, but mentally I feel fantastic. I'm very much at peace with what happened. It happened. There's nothing I can do to change it. I didn't want it to happen, but it's, we got to move forward. That's the only thing I can do. I can't sit there and worry about that.
No.
So I gotta keep going and keep moving forward.
Yeah. And that's what's, it's an honor to sit across from you and talk to some of the other people, Rob Jones and some of these people that have been through trauma, lost limbs, or, in your case, obviously, the trauma that you had internally, and then just be like, all right, this has happened, and then we'll talk about it in a minute, but now how I'm going to turn this into a project that's going to do even more good. But I want to discuss that. One more thing that before I forget, you mentioned, the STAR training. Clearly you fell back on your level of training, which is something we talk about a lot. Just kind of paint the picture. What was your training like? How did you prepare? Were you well versed in training for the worst case scenario?
I would say yes. I was well prepared. I was mentally prepared. Something may happen to me at some point. I realize not all cops are. Not everybody. There's a lot of this can never happen to me and complacency and that type of thing. I was aware that this could happen to me. I just didn't. I didn't think it would, but it did. So when we do our training out in Oklahoma City, the first day is medical training. And that's what they do is they put us in the medical scenarios and with the tourniquets and, evacuating people out of air because we're at aviation. So we, airplane's on fire, you got to evacuate people out of it, or you just crashed a helicopter or something like that. And then you walk up on somebody and they have these catastrophic injuries. And so they put us through this training of how to stop blood, how to put a tourniquet on, how to do basic stuff until the professionals can arrive. And that's a huge part of it. And that's one day of the course, the medical part. We also do water survival. We do active shooter training while we're there. We do some legal training. So that's all one part of the course. But getting to we do land survival as well. And then to do, but this part, it's near and dear to my heart, obviously, the medical part, and then the preaching the will to survive. You've got to have that will to survive. To me, that's huge. Because if you think, I guarantee if I thought I was going to die in that parking lot, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now.
There's no question.
If I would have just rolled over and said, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also what rang true to me when you were telling that story is the whole time you just been hit, you were lying there, you didn't go into victim mode, you were still in, let me engage the target, or does he have another person, and that again, if you hadn't trained the way you train, you would have, just succumbed right there. And what if he had been the guy walking over? You would have taken him out before he, when he came around that truck. And I think that is such a powerful lesson for all of us listening is if you're complacent, that's ironic. I just put a post on this today on social media. when the shit hits the fan, there's no hiding then, and it's too late.
Right. Yeah, because, whenever it hit the fan for me, I was in the middle of a parking lot. I couldn't go to concealment. I couldn't go to cover. There was nothing there. I mean, it was instantaneous. I've had a lot of people ask me about, why do you put a cover shirt on, that type of thing. And again, it's just, I'm in a nice area, Jacksonville, and this is very, very pro law enforcement, very pro military. It just never even dawned on me to do it. I mean, it's just, we just don't have these types of issues that happen here. And so I just didn't think about it. And then I'll get asked about the vest, not having a vest on. And my response to that is absolutely we should wear our vests. I'm not saying we should never wear a vest. We should wear our vests. Again, this was an administrative function that I was doing. But here's the way I see it, is that had I had my vest on, so it didn't hit me anywhere my vest covered, for one. And let's say the bullet may have caught the vest here on my upper right side. But, if that would have happened, what if the bullet would have tumbled? What if it went through my lungs and my heart? That type of thing. So I kind of think about that. And then the other thing is a shoulder holster. I haven't worn a shoulder holster since that day, and I'll never wear one again. If I'd had a waist rig on, and I've thought about that as well. But then you think about, what if that first bullet would have hit my brachial artery? What if I would have missed shooting him? Because I think I could have got the gun out. What if I'd have missed him and hit the guy sitting in his van on the other side of the parking lot with a 40 caliber hollow point? So the way I kind of see this is that this worked out the way it was supposed to. The bad guy's dead. I'm here. Nobody else got hurt. I've got some scarring. I got a little bit of pain, but big deal. Who cares? I'm going forward with life. So this thing worked. He was going to kill a cop that day, and he was unable to kill a state trooper. He may have walked up on the guy doing paperwork, and just like Jesse Hartnett was shot and put bullets through a window, which I think is what he would have done. So he didn't get a Florida Highway Patrol guy. He didn't get a Clay County Sheriff's Department. He didn't. He did all these other ones are Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. He got me. He got me, and I was able to take it. I was able to take the 5, and if I got to take 5 again for my brothers, I will. I don't want to. It sucked, but I'll certainly do it.
Yeah.
It's not an experience I ever want to have again, but if it comes to protecting them, then that's what I got to do.
Yeah, and it's funny, people talk about wearing the vest, not showing that you're law enforcement. That's the wrong focus. The focus is how the hell do we stop these innocent little toddlers that giggle around and chase balls around a garden turning into these shitbag gangbangers. That's what we've got to fix.
That's exactly right. I think you're right on there. And part of this, people ask me, what have you changed? I said, I haven't changed anything. He's not changing me. He's just not. It's just not going to change me. I'm going to be the same guy that I was. It's just going to be the way it is. The way I feel about it is if I change, he wins, and I'm not letting him win. I think going forward, we've got to figure out how to get kids not to want to kill cops. That's what that's what we've got to do is figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. I was talking to someone the other day. I think it was in an interview. I grew up loving hip hop, and rap, but it's kind of ironic that the one guy that sang "Fuck the Police" now plays a policeman on TV and movies. Yeah. The guy that sang "Cop Killer" plays a policeman on TV.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna allow people to promote that, and then obviously do the polar opposite when it comes to being offered money and realizing that's just empty rhetoric anyway. That's the mentality we need to change. The video games, I had Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman on twice now. He's absolutely right. Grand Theft Auto, you're running around murdering police officers and prostitutes. These horror movies I talk about, that is a part. If we're entertained by a cabin full of teenagers being murdered and mutilated, maybe we need to take a step back and look at what we classify as entertainment.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then you think of these kids, they play the video games and then they think, well, I'll go and I'll commit suicide. What am I going to do? I'm just going to respawn somewhere else. And it just doesn't work that way. And it's a problem. And I'm hoping, I was talking to you about this before, I'm hoping to eventually start a foundation. If I could figure out how to do it right now, I'm just in the brainstorming mode of either, Hard to Kill Foundation or H2K Foundation probably would be a more appropriate name for it. And that's to help PTSD with cops, firefighters, and trauma docs, trauma nurses, and even at-risk teens. If parents can identify this and then have a retreat that we have a funding source for. There's lots of retreats out there with clinical help where we can send kids out there and send cops, firefighters, like I said, and I think trauma docs and nurses have been left out of this, and then they need to very much be a part of it, and get them some help. I think that's probably the reason why I was left here, and I've got to figure out how to get this thing started and get some funding and get some help for people that need it.
Yeah. Well, you're going to join a long list of guests that I've had that have given so much in their service, and then something happens, whether it's just retirement, whether it's injury, and they immediately turn around and go, how can I use this as a way of doing even more, serving even more? So I don't think you're going to have any problems getting that off the ground. I think it's a great idea. And I think the mentorship of the youth is how we fix it. I mean, I've seen with my own eyes martial arts change kids' lives. I've watched Pat Russo. He's got a boxing club, NYPD, started, and they've just turned around these street kids and made them successful in school, successful in the ring. And that's what we have to do. And we need mentors instead of pigeonholing each other and playing the blame game. And you highlighted perfectly. Why don't you sue Publix? Let's get rid of that whole lawsuit mentality.
Yeah, no need in it.
No, and just start taking care of each other and raising our children. And
right. And that's one reason why I started volunteering at the local high school at Clay High, was because I want to. I mean, it's put up or shut up. I can sit here and say whatever I want, but it's a matter of what I do. So being able to go to that school and stand in front of those kids and talk to them and have them ask me questions, or just going and sitting there and hanging out with them, or during the day with their with their teachers, and just being able to sit there and say, hey, Mr. Stokes, maybe I got a problem. How can I do this, or how can I do that? That's the way the academy is set up, and I could go in there and talk to them and be a mentor to them. And also Jake Hawkins, he actually goes down there with me too. He actually went to the high school. That's where he graduated from. So him and Mandy are both coming down and helping mentor these young kids. And I think that's the way forward, especially with like I said, with Mandy and the young girls. I mean, whenever, she's 35 years old and tells her story to these 17, 18-year-old girls, and they're just enamored with her. Saying, hey, and she's such a good role model. So I think that's how we go forward. It's going to take our generation to reach down and say, listen, lean on us for help. We'll help you guys out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. If you think that we all started as these innocent preschoolers, stop that middle part where they go down the wrong part. And then, like you said, if we've all seen the houses, they are out there where you look at them and like, these kids don't stand a chance. That's when that local community needs to step up. And I actually, as we're sitting here, tomorrow's guest is going to be Steve O'Michael, who grew up in a horrible part of Orlando, right next to where my station used to be. Came out of that, ended up in university in Colorado, and then went back, became a firefighter, and then serves that same community that he grew up in. It looks like, third world country in there. And that's it, is that if you're a member of that community and you've come up and you've come out the right way, then understand that you have a duty now to fix the rest. Whether you're an athlete or a rap star, whatever it is, you can either be an egotistical shitbag, or you can actually truly help the hood that you were from.
Yeah, I agree. And the shooter, for me, was he lived in this neighborhood. He was a well-off Caucasian kid, who just lost his damn mind. It's sad. It's unfortunate for him. It's unfortunate for his family that this happened. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to transition to some closing questions, because we have been chatting for coming up on almost 2 hours. So it's been a hell of a conversation.
I hope people are still listening.
No, I'm sure they are. I'm telling you, they're transfixed. So the first one I love to ask people, is there a book that you love to recommend? It can be about the general topic we've talked about or something completely different.
I read Jocko Willick's book, Extreme Leadership. I think that's a unbelievably well written, and Jocko's just such a sharp guy. And also, there's a book called Out of Captivity that was written about some contractors that were captured in Colombia and they were held captive for like 5 years. And to hear their stories was just unbelievable. And actually, during that mission, I actually flew on their missions, their rescue missions, in the beginning days after their airplane crash. So that's when it comes to survival and that type of thing out of captivity is a fantastic book to read.
Oh wow! And when they first crashed, you guys are looking to them. It's the same ones that 5 years later were finally.
That's correct.
Okay, how were they released? If I don't want to be the the cliffhanger, but
it was eventually the Colombian government.
Okay.
was able to rescue them. So it was an airplane crash in Colombia, and they got captured by the local guerrillas.
Okay, and what about a movie and or documentary?
Movie. I mean, Forrest Gump's my favorite movie of all time because it's just if it comes on, I just can't. I just can't stop watching it. And like Narcos, and I'm such a student of drug smuggling. I soak it all in and I learn about it. And so when it comes to the documentaries, stuff like Drugs Incorporated and things like that, I study those things.
Right. On a side note, I'll have to cut this bit out because I'm trying to remember his name now. So there's the author Sam Quinones who wrote a book called Dreamland, and it talks about the specific, and I forget the name of it now, but specific town in Mexico, and how they started going to the lesser known cities and bringing black tar heroin. So they were getting addicts that were initially on pain pills. Then the government changed their stance on that. The pill mills went away. And so they started coming in and doing it. But it was all from this one small town. It was a fascinating interview, but I'm sure that's something that you're probably very familiar with.
Yeah, not that in particular, but I'd like to learn about it for sure.
Yeah, great book. And he writes it very, very well. Dreamland was a giant pool in Ohio that started off as this kind of idyllic place in the 50s, 60s, I think it was. And then now you see the kind of the town fall apart and the addiction come in, and then the connection between that town, this tiny town in Mexico. But
there is one other book I want to mention, and it has nothing to do with any of the topics we've talked about, which I recommend. And the name of it is called The Art of Racing in the Rain. And it's a book. I'm an animal lover. And so we have 3 dogs. And the book is written about a dog's life from the point of view of the dog. So the dog wrote the book from start to finish. Anyway, it's if you're a dog lover, and especially if you've maybe lost an animal recently or something like that, it's a phenomenal read. The Art of Racing in the Rain.
Brilliant. I've never heard that recommended before, so I will add that. Thank you so much.
I think my wife read it in one night. So I remember up in bed and she just had tears in her eyes. So yeah, so it's a wonderful book.
Excellent. All right. The next question: is there a guest that you would recommend to come on this podcast to talk to the first responders, military, ER nurses, and doctors that we have listening to the show?
I would love for Mandy and Brett to talk about what it's like to be a firefighter family, to both of them being firefighters and trying to raise 2 kids, and the massive effort that takes. I think that would having those 2 on board would be phenomenal. I'm not sure how many husband and wife firefighters that work for 2 different cities or 2 different counties are out there, but I think that would be a pretty good interview for you. Some of the trauma docs and nurses at Orange Park Medical Center, I'd be interested to hear their point of view, not just from my story, but for lots of stories, and just working in the ER and working in trauma as a whole.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's the thing we talk about. Traumatic injuries, whether it's from car wrecks or violent crime, and again, those are the heroes of that. Like, we can reverse, diabetes and stop a heart attack and bring someone back from cardiac arrest. But when it comes to trauma, it's pretty much transport just to the experts. They're going to cut them open. Yeah,
just like whenever we had a party, Man and I threw a party for all for everybody who helped in my recovery at Intuition Ill Works here in Jacksonville. And I was able to bring most of the trauma staff up there. Unfortunately, Dr. Shrocklu couldn't make it, but the rest of them. And if someone's listening and you guys are in the medical field, doctors, nurses, I appreciate the path that they took. That's a hard path, a long, hard path to get through. And I really, really appreciate people that do things that are hard, and they work their butts off and they basically lose their entire 20s for probably most of the most funnest part of their life. They've put on hold specifically so they can go save people's lives, and I really appreciate that, and I understand that, and I couldn't be more thankful for those folks and the sacrifices that they've made, personally, financially. They sacrificed everything to go to eventually save someone's life, and I think that needs to be. People don't understand how hard it is to be a doctor, to be a physician. It's a very hard, very, very hard path, and to choose that path and to do well at it is not easy. And I can't thank them enough.
Yeah. Well, I've always said, all those professions, if you save just one life in your whole career, 20, 30, 40 years, it was worth it. Everything else is a bonus. And to sit across from you and know that everyone involved in that whole chain of your survival did just that is incredible.
Yeah, in my recovery, survival and recovery, it's just been, I don't know why I'm so lucky, James. I have no idea. Anyway, I'm here and I'm going to make the best of it.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to the Hard to Kill H2K project.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be very, very good. So we'll talk about it in a moment, how people can reach out if they want to help you with that. But one last thing before we do that, what do you do to decompress when you're not CrossFitting and removing your colostomy bag?
I don't have it anymore. I'm good to go. I'm a big NASCAR fan, so I go to races. I usually go to all speed weeks in Daytona. So I enjoy going down there for that. I have a motorcycle, so I do a lot of enduro riding. I like to ride off road, on road. I have a camper. We go camping. We go to a lot of live music and that type of things, festivals. And then we like to travel as well, as much as we can. My wife is on the board of directors for a no-kill animal shelter, and so we volunteer some time for that as well, taking care of the animals and visiting family, just like everybody else. I like to do the same things everybody else does, but usually it comes down to me. Usually camping, riding a motorcycle. I love to fly. Although I'm not a pilot, I've never got my pilot's license. I've always wanted it. I guess because I fly in airplanes for a living. But I like to fly. Sometimes if somebody goes recreational flying and invites me along, I'll go. So that's generally that's what we do. Besides that, like I said, every day I go to work and I go to Blackfin, and I come home and I just wash, rinse, lather, repeat.
Brilliant. All right. Well, then the most important thing then. So let's try and help you get this H2K project off the floor. So if people listening want to reach out to you, what would be the best avenue of communication?
Wow. For right now, if I'd have known we were going to do this, I would have made a Gmail account. But right now, just send me an email. It's skyfuzz@gmail.com, and then we'll see if I can get another email.
It's a very English word, fuzz.
Yeah. Kind of like a flying cop type thing. So, that'd be the first way. Like I said, I don't know the legal part of setting up some sort of a 501c, C3, I guess, and then the accounting part of it. And I have the idea, and I just don't know. I just need guidance on getting it headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm sure there's people out there listening that can give you advice. I mean, I know some people that have gone down the pure charity road and said there's some barriers as far as expenses and things, but I think with what you're trying to do, and I can reach out to some of the people I know that already have similar platforms that maybe can help as well. So
right, yeah, and like I said, I know nothing about this. And it's no money for me. I would never even take a dime from it. It would all go, every single dollar would go towards helping people that needed help. I don't need money, so it's just about helping other people.
Brilliant. Well, I look forward to seeing that project grow and helping promote it when it's off the ground.
Thank you. Yeah, and design. Somebody design a logo. I mean, I can think of all these things I need help with.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Well, actually, I know one guy who just reached out to me to see if I needed any help with this, and he just came out of radio school, I think it was. So I'm sure the whole design, social media thing is his forte too. So we could see if he's interested when things are rolling a little bit.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. So I just want to say an amazing story. It's an honor to be sitting across from you. It's an honor to tell the story for everyone else that was involved in that journey. Like you said, that took part in saving your life and putting you back on the streets, where you belong. And just thank you for having the courage to tell the story and let me into your home to listen to it.
Yeah, no problem. It helps me to talk about it. I'll talk about it as long as somebody will listen. I'll talk because it helps me to do that.